Happy birthday, Gallery Press, and it's great to be joining you from Oxfordshire. I'm going to be reading 3 poems this evening. The first one is The Curzon from Happy Hour, my first book, published in 2012 with Gallery Press. And I've chosen this one because in memory and in tribute to the late great Kieran Carson. It was very sad to hear of his death just before Christmas. And I've chosen this poem because, I wanted to pay my respects to Kieran, and I thought this was a great opportunity to do that. I was lucky enough to have read them, like many other gallery poets, I'm sure, a few times. But this poem was one of the first poems I had published, and it was published in the Yellow Nib under his reign as the editor there. And it was a great moment to have had a poem published by him in that great magazine, The Curzon. And when the credits rolled and lights went up, the ceiling seemed unreachable as sky. On either side of us was hung an ocean of curtained wall, and yet the building seemed so small, so humble from without, as if itself some sort of optical illusion, some special effect, a trick of the eye. It got us every time. And there we are. I see us now, my mother and my sister and myself, latish, last minute for a matinee perhaps, all greeted by a darkened room and backs of heads, steady as we go along the LED-lined floor. Each aisle a dotted runway strip, as seats are taken, lights dimmed, minds blown. Well, my little 10-month-old boy Rory is up in his bed sleeping at the minute, and it's a nice, dry, warm evening here in Oxfordshire, so all is well in the world. And I thought I would read this little poem called Prayer After Birth for my little son Rory. And this comes from my second book, Stay, which was 2017. You've got it all in front of you, kiddo. The fields along the Killalay Road in Blackberry September, unlikeliest of the loveliest months. The gentle stampede of cattle behind you, stubbled ground beneath your feet, bird shadow. You've got it all in front of you, kiddo, 1,000,000 miles an hour on your bike down the hill, to the pig house and back up the lane again. Grazed knees and elbows, cuts and bruises, gurning the house down, but you'll get it in time. The readying, steadying, then the letting go. You've got it all in front of you, kiddo. Kisses in the dark by the water at White Rock, between the nighttime crickets at Coyle Lock, before the last train at Waterloo, beneath the new globe by Mile End Canal. Kisses, good luck, hello, goodbye, don't go. You've got it all in front of you, kiddo. The North Coast coastal road at August's end. Your grandfather burning bonfires in the spring, and keep an eye out for a shooting star above the ash tree in the winter, and starlings, kiddo, from the kitchen window. You've got it all in front of you, kiddo. Times tables and spellings and meanings, kind-hearted people with bad breath reading stories to you in a room with enormous windows, and a newly varnished parquet floor where you'll begin to learn how much you'll never know. You've got it all in front of you, kiddo. Snow fights and water bombs and sunburn, cinema in the daytime with your mother, in the middle of the week, salted popcorn, sweet popcorn, Coca-Cola, pick and mix, thunder and lightning, silence, sunlight, rainbow. You've got it all in front of you, kiddo. Stubbled ground beneath your feet, bird shadow, the readying, steadying, then the letting go of kisses, good luck, hello, goodbye, don't go. Starlings, kiddo, from the kitchen window, where you'll begin to learn how much you'll never know, of thunder and lightning, silence, sunlight, rainbow. We've been asked to pick one poem from any gallery poet, which in itself is a very difficult task. And it's been pretty agonizing, to be quite honest with you. I've gone through all sorts of books today and had them lying out on the floor of the study, trying to pick which one. And in the end, I've been dictated by my mood, really, and what I felt like reading tonight. And I've chosen a poem called Swineherd by Elaine Quillian, and I think this is a terrific poem. It's a piece of art. It's a great work of art, and it's 14 lines long, and what it does in those 14 lines is pretty special, and it achieves, I think, the thing that very few poems achieve, which is very few great poems achieve, which is it invites you to go back and reread it again and again and again, and never seems to exhaust itself. So this is called Swineherd. I'm sure you know it. When all this is over, said the swineherd, I mean to retire, where nobody will have heard about my special skills, and conversation is mainly about the weather. I intend to learn how to make coffee at least as well as the Portuguese lay sister in the kitchen, and polish the brass fenders every day. I want to lie awake at night, listening to cream crawling to the top of the jug, and the water lying soft in the cistern. I want to see an orchard where the trees grow in straight lines, and the yellow fox finds shelter between the navy blue trunks, where it gets dark early in summer, and the apple blossom is allowed to wither on the bough. Thank you.
Hi, just wanted to say a great big thanks to the Gallery Press and to Peter Fallon for publishing my new collection, The Talk of the Town. Very, very happy with the translations here and delighted, of course, with this publication. I'd like to read two poems from this collection with translations by Peter Fallon, and one poem from my fellow poet Simon O'Whalon from Calling Cards, which was published last year. So the first poem I'll read is called Scarra na Gcompánach, which means the parting of the ways, and it gives a kind of female perspective or voice to an historical figure in the tradition who would have been kind of absent from the literary tradition. That was the wife of the great Hugh O'Neill. Her name was Caitríona McGuinness, the Countess of Tyrone, and she found herself during the flight of the Earl 1607 being forced to abandon her son Con, who was 5 years of age, as her husband was forcing her to board the ship, and she had a kind of a sense of intuition and foreboding, that kind of female intuition that she had, that this wasn't really a good idea, the whole flight of the Earls. So I was interested in that female voice. Scarra na Gcompánach, Lauren Caitríona Cúntaí Siarón. Bhruach na fiabhla túr, a hanig thugam a dabhrah, gléam thugah a dhearra Jim an timach seo ní tarróach. Mar a scaptar jatach, is early a láfar Virginia mar céir a láthar na tinne, is early a láfar. Inchyn te cínu gíthe a bhfuilean an anduin, sa leor ag an éachtú é sin nó a dúr London. Má bheach óg, má bhurnín can, má leanamh hain, má léach sa, gan é ach a cuaig de bléanta farm, is gachaíon sná le réabú. Fan na bhí orm an céad lá riamh irid an taras go rá mhélan, a curma iarla orm go le rai, is ar mac ágáil fhí láv an dhill. And the translation here by Peter Fallon is The Parting of the Ways, as spoken by Catherine O'Neill née McGuinness, Countess of Tyrone. On the Foyles river bank a foreboding came on me, and I fitfully sleeping Men, I pray and plead with you, what's the good in this going? Just as smoke can be scattered, so we'll be dispersed like wax by the hearthside. We'll come into our worst. A keen wind will report what's in store as it rages in London's tower or through the raven's pages. My youngest son, my darling Con, child and hero heaven sent, with me a mere span of 5 years. Now each and every tie's to be rent. To abandon the trip to Rathmullen was from the start my most ardent wish, but he, my own Earl, forced me to proceed and abandon our son to the grip of English. So I grew up in Gortmoney, Emmyvale, along the border at the height of the Troubles, and my mother was from County Tyrone, and we often had to cross the border at Aughnacloy to go and see my grandmother in Tyrone. And as children we thought it was completely normal to be stopped at the checkpoint, at gunpoint, and interrogated and asked many questions as to where we were going, why we were going, what our names were, what the purpose of our trip was. And although we thought it was completely normal, we were aware of my mother's anxiety as we had to cross the border, and with the dawn of Brexit, etc., some of these memories came back to me, and I decided to write a series of poems about those kind of border experiences. Shoran. Irin she orthaí seasamh amach ón ghlúisteáin le go gcuirí sé ceist na orthaí. Fécinn a trúr in dhíanacha mac an inneog a máthair agus gunaí na saidirí. Cabhail de thrial. Cad as a bhfuil se bheith teacht agus céan foiá a ífrion an saidir dí go borab. Cad is anyam ditch. Cabhail cóníart. Níor ragar mo wathair aonrod riamh có ciúin cuaireamach ina saol, ribh sin nó ina dhé. Tá méid díreach in ní cuairt a thuairt mo wathair a deirsí, sean wathair na galíní a ddíreón. Agus inis tá méid dul thar an teorn go scarabh na géireach. Níos déanaí síon sí sa cistén I caitheamh fiche silcot I deanamh buaramh is macnamh agus I géirí an agla ribh an shed mór a curdaí. Border, the limit. He asks her to step out of the car for a moment. Just a few questions. Her 3 little angels stare at their mother through the window at the soldiers' submachine guns. Where are you coming from? Where are you going? And why? And to what end? The pup of a Scotty demands. What's your name? Where do you call home? In all her days, my mother had never so quietly and carefully responded. I'm after seeing my mother, said she, the wee one's granny in County Tyrone. Now I'm crossing the border for Emmyvale, heading home. Later, she sits in the kitchen, working her way through 20 Silcot, a huddle of worry, a bundle of bother, and struggling to banish the dread of the big shed at the border. I'd like to read a poem by my fellow Irish language poet, Simon O'Whalon, called Growl, or Selfish Love, which is included in the Calling Cards anthology, the 10 Younger Irish Poets, also brought out by the Gallery Press. And I just chose this poem because I think it really is beautiful, and the language in it is beautiful, and it also illustrates kind of sometimes that kind of the visual element in the love of beauty. Gra liatlach. Gerir, tá lúbistí agad na hain, heis sú le caitheamh haar cúpla dán. Ní dartha san da métha an lá ag loch na drí céal, gur bhreagraíos alta na bilibíní, Lingeder mar curpawan os lin, fuam mila paca carti a mascu, blaim brulach bon le ga cashernin, agus iad ag piberacht géir cínse, gan cúis bheith buoch don mrúdach, pe ínta sa bhír nó uan, a vagarid go glan a sant na súl. The translation here is by Peter Sir. Selfish love. You're very fond of birds, you say, glancing at a couple of poems. You wouldn't say that if you'd been there that day at Castlemaine Harbour when I flushed a flock of lapwings. They rose as one above the water, wings shuffling like 1,000 packs of cards. White breasts blazing as they twisted, piping their sharp cries, and didn't thank the loud hoof from wonder or terror drove them away from the impatient greed of his eye. So I'd just like to read this poem, Hui Med of the Lorach, which is about the beautiful landscape in which I grew up, right around here, all the beautiful place names and the oak woods, na Derry. And it shows how, in a way, this landscape is a haunted landscape, and how that love of the landscape, which Peter understands so well when he translates my work, comes through in my work, and also the references to the Fairy Bride, on which I based my second collection, An Bhrídeach She. Hui me dod the Lorach, hui me dod the Lorach, in nura na gasan, in nura haliach, in nura ciach, is in nura na shalach. Hui me dod the Lorach o hairnian ale go balla o sheen, on drehid gurm go hinish go lin, in nónach idir go wón. I bhís the níthe honnig me an bhrídeach she is ma cionna a chapel buan, ag teacht fan na Jane go cashlán glas locha, honnig me taibh si uignacha faoi ocras, ag tógáil balla aimsir an droch héal. Hui me suas an lisbuí go corn na créwa go cura grin, ach arc ní ró ar tain stór. And the translation here by Peter Fallon, he really knows when and how to translate the sound of the place names, and at other times the emphasis is more on the meaning. I went out to find you. I went out to find you in Derry Gasson, in Derry Hilla, in Derry He, and in Derna Shallag. I went out to find you all the way from Tiernaneal, from the Blue Bridge to Ballyoshing, to Annishdevlin in Dona and the two bogs between. That night I was seeing things. I saw the Fairy Bride and Chief McKenna astride his grey coming for her at Castle Leslie. I saw hungry ghosts wandering alone, erecting a wall in the bad times. I went above to Lisboy, to Corcoran and Cornacreeve, but there was no sign of you, no sign, my love.
Take 26. I kid you not. Congratulations, Peter and Jean and all at Gallery Press on the occasion of your 50th anniversary. It's a wonderful occasion, one that I'm sure you would have preferred to have been celebrating in different circumstances, and hopefully we'll get around to doing it in the way that it deserves on another occasion. In the meantime, it does give me the opportunity to say thanks to you, Peter, in particular, and to all at Gallery for the collaboration, for the act of faith. It's very much appreciated. I'd like to read this little piece from a play called The Salvage Shop, which Gallery published in 1998. And in this extract, Sylvie, who's the conductor of the local brass band and the owner of the eponymous Salvage Shop, he's on his way out of the band, and he's also on his way out of this life. But in this short extract, he's paying some kind of homage to the great singer Luciano Pavarotti. And so I'm going to read just a short piece from that. He sang in the church choir at Modena, you know. That's where he started. And his father with him, by all accounts. That must have been nice. Father and son side by side. They say he still goes back there. Each summer returns to his native place and offers his gift again to his own. And I wouldn't wonder if he receives more than he bestows. Maybe no more than a memory, a drink again from the wellspring. But maybe too amongst his own, he remembers something else, the sacred purpose of his gift. That his voice belongs to those who have none, that when he sings for those who cannot speak. I like that. There's a form of symmetry in that exchange, don't you think? Thank you. One of the incidental pleasures of having been published by Gallery was that it was also the publishing house of my great friend and fellow Waterford writer, the late and great Sean Dunn. Sean sadly died in 1995, but 3 years before his first collection with Gallery, The Sheltered Nest, was published, and just 3 weeks before he died, Time in the Island, his final collection, was submitted to Peter and to Gallery. He left us far too early. This poem, Doorsteps, is set on the same council housing estate that we both grew up in. Sean has written better poems, but probably none that left a deeper impression on me at a time when it mattered. He was very much a great friend of mine, but also a mentor, and he kind of made the road a little bit easier for me. This is a poem called Doorsteps. Lovely the women of suburbs in summer, sitting on doorsteps to talk in the sun, with their hairdos and magazines on lives of the famous, and their children amok in the gardens. They talk of old times as they gather, of girls in their heyday at party and dance, when love was a brightness of seasides in summer, and promises flowed easily as waves. But now there are daughters who need telling off for wearing loud clothes and coming home late, and lately their husbands have fought with their sons for going away weekends and answering back. Lovely the women of suburbs in summer, sitting on doorsteps to talk in the sun, with their hairdos and magazines on lives of the famous, and the halls of their future behind them.